Hello everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me. So someone, if you can hear and see me, would you please write something? Let's see. I'm crossing my fingers. Can you hear me and see me? Oh! Yes! Oh, this is wonderful. Okay. I didn't have to start a new one. I was so good this week. I said, I'm going to make sure I have a placeholder and get it set up. Well, somehow, even though I was typing in the information, it made the time as Friday, May 2nd. What? So we were afraid we would have to close this out and start again, but we're fine now. Yay! Oh, this is terrific. And I've gotten so punchy about getting these things correct that I'm like nervous about even saying anything. So, because I really tried hard. But in my to give myself a little bit of understanding. I'm always so hard on myself. If it happened to you, I'd be so understanding, but with me, I get angry. But this week, I don't know if you remember last Sunday, I said, Mark's out riding his bike. Mark took his week away at the beach, at the ocean. And it's always so good for him. It just kind of renews his soul. And, you know, I'm lucky. I get to go to a retreat or a class, away class. So it's important. Everybody needs to, you know, we work hard and we need to play hard too. So anyway, he got back last night. He was supposed to get back today, but he got back yesterday evening because they had called for horrible weather. And before, he's had to ride the bike home, motorcycle home, in the pouring rain, which is horrible. Something you don't want to do unless you can't help it. And so he came back early thinking, oh, this is a good thing because, you know, the weather. Well, guess what? It couldn't be more pretty out. The front that was coming through across from the Midwest to the east sped up and moved through quicker. So, poor guy, you know, he couldn't get a refund on his night that he was, you know, refusing to do since he was going to leave early, and came home, and now he's back to letting the dogs out and feeding them and helping me set up my computer. But now you probably know why I was so nervous last week. When I had a little problem, because I thought, he's not here to help me. So until I knew he was coming home early, I was making sure that I had the feed set up and the agenda printed so I could handle it on my own. So, yes, thank you for remembering, Miss Jo. He had gotten so cold and so wet, and his hands were not gripping by the time he got home. It was pretty terrible. So it is so good to see all of you. Oh, there is Mark. Hi, hon. And in fact, he brought me some seashells because he was by the seashore, and I'll show you those in a little bit. But I do want to tell you that it has been a hard week because my sleep schedule has been totally off. I'm a night owl, and I've gotten used to staying up until 2 or 3 and then sleeping in till 10 or 11. Well, no, because the dogs need to get up, go outside and potty, and eat breakfast. So I'm really discombobbled. Hopefully I'll make sense today, but if not, I want to explain why. And in fact, no starfish, no, but I have an idea of what to do for starfish on this latest quilt we're going to do. You know how I love to do Dorset buttons. Think about that, because I was looking at a picture of starfish and I said, the Dorset button technique could work. So now I've got to figure that out. But you know me, I love figuring stuff like that out. Remember last week I was showing you some pictures I had taken from the garden? And, yeah, and with the starfish, I guess I would do 5. Instead of doing 12 spokes, I would do 5. So I'm excited about that because I thought it'd be good if it's soft and it's easy to sew on the quilt. But I was showing you this picture of pinks or dianthus that I love because they often come back the next year. This is my clematis, and it is like a huge double bloom. I do wish it was a little more vivid purple. It's kind of washed out, but I think that maybe, I mean, look at all those blooms. I think maybe I should just consider how lucky I am and just tell them they are beautiful. I've got an update. Remember I put a new roof with Mark's help. I put a new roof on my birdhouse. There it is out in the yard, and it looks so great. And Mark made a plywood base, and then I took popsicle sticks and glued them on like shingles, and then we put an oil-based primer and a couple coats of latex paint, and it rained all this week, and some of the sides curled, some of the little shingles kind of warped out. So we're going to have to take the top off, bring it back in, and see what has caused that water to get infiltrate. We thought we had it. I mean, we sealed it with all kinds of stuff, but it wasn't enough. So look at it one more time right now, because it may never look that good again. But I told Mark, I said, you know, I used the tacky glue, and it's kind of water-based. I probably should have used a urethane-based glue. So we shall see. Laura R. is here. You'll be in and out, no problem, hon. And Laura, thank you for the sweet note. Laura got her photocopied on cotton herons that I had left over from the narrow strip seascape. And I did get the, whoops, let me get it lined up good. I did get the borders on, and I will be showing you how did I do that. And I left a corner to show you how I handled the corners. So this one, once I quilt the edge of this binding and border, once I quilt that, which I'm going to do on my domestic machine, and then it's going to be done. Well, as soon as I put a label on it, it will be done. It's really important to label an unusual quilt like this, because if it lasts, if it makes it long when I'm no longer here, somebody's going to say, why did she do this? What does this mean? So I'm going to put a label on it, and that way it is recorded. So, all right. And I still haven't figured the perfect place for Bonnie's flamingo cupcake, but it stays right here. I love it. So, okay. Speaking of emails, I got a couple really good emails. One from SJ that I'll show you during show and tell. And Nadine, remember our Nadine from Germany? She wrote me the sweetest email. And she talked about, I'm so sorry that your country's having to go through the things it's going through. And I said, it was so touching. And in fact, she gave me a wonderful quote from JFK that kind of just, you know, we just got to keep going. But I absolutely loved what she said. And Nadine, if you tune into this at some point, please know that meant everything to me. I wrote her back to tell her. I mean, I was like all choked up, all teared up. And speaking of the Cheetos liar, Did you know they said at their rally on Wednesday in Michigan that egg prices are down 87%? 87%. I right away went and checked the grocery store. No, it's still $4.99 a dozen. That's not 87% of $2. Unless he meant, no, he said it went down 82%. Also said that gas prices were down as low as $1.98. Nope, they're over $3. Also said everything, the price of everything is down. And that the 100 days were the best so far. So now I'm going to shut up before I get us all into an argument. But what an amazing thing we're witnessing. Amazing. And I won't even get into the mother and daughter who were wrongly attacked by unnamed sources, ICE people that broke in and made them stand outside in the middle of the night in their underwear in the rain. But anyway, I better back off of this because we're here to have fun. So let's have some fun. Okay, I think I'll go ahead. Ooh, I want to. Let me show you a couple things. I get really proud of my empty spools, thread spools. And so far I have 3 this year. And I collect them now because it shows me, yes, you're getting stuff done. And that's a very good thing. Okay. I just wanted to show you, I think I had told you that I had gotten these. And, but these are going to help me keep from cutting my fingertips when I use a rotary cutter. So they're supposed to be, you know, I'm not saying that you could just take a blade and go after them, but hopefully they'll slow down the rotary cutter. So I did want to show you those. I'm real happy to have them after I ran the rotary cutter into my finger. So I think we're going to go to the close-up camera and let me show you what Mark picked up from the seashore. Okay. I was so tickled. I love this stuff. So, okay, let's see. I think I need a new mouse. It's acting up. Or is it because I have to chase the cursor around? Yeah. Well, I'll show you one while I'm trying to get the cursor to respond. But here is a good old, I call them clamshells. Maybe somebody, I'm pretty sure it's a clam. Maybe somebody could say, oh, well, that's a scallop, really, or something like that. Oh, here we go. Yay. All right. So here are the wonderful shells. I love how he brings these home to me. And these already have holes in the back. So these are going to be easy. And I will be putting these on our newest. Now look at that. Is that beautiful or what? Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. But, and I love all of these. This is a segment of a shell from a much larger shell. You see how thick that is? And Mark even said, wouldn't that be beautiful as a pendant? And I agree with him. That would make a lovely pendant. But look at this cute little orange one. It already has the hole. So several already, 3 at least here, already have a hole. But I just think these are beautiful. The shell decoration on this, it's a little bit like this one, but it's so beautiful. Not only does it have these semicircular lines, but it also has the creases this way. So it is just beautiful. So anyway, I thought I would show you these. I always get excited to see what he found me. And you know what? That's awfully nice because, oh, look at that. The sand has worn it down almost smooth. Isn't that beautiful? So, thank you, my Mark. I do love this. Look at that. And he also brought me home his hotel shampoo, which I get excited about. Okay. Now I'll show, well, I'll wait on that one. Let's go ahead and let me show you what I'm doing. Hi, Michelle Lang. Oh, Alberta, I have your pictures. We're going to show them at Show and Tell today. Yay. Oh, you had trouble finding me today. Sorry, Miss Polly. What happened is I had set a placeholder, but it inadvertently somehow made my placeholder as if it was going to be Friday night. And so I had to kind of reconnect something. All right, this is my narrow strip. And I wanted to tell you, I still had problems getting this to really show up. So I came in today with a very fine paintbrush. I came in today and used some white acrylic paint with a very fine brush and just emphasize the feathers once again. So I really like it now. And that's probably the only other thing I could have done is use like a pearl cotton, a white pearl cotton, and added a lot of stitches because I'd already done stitches on the sewing machine, but they tend to want to just kind of blend in after a while. So what I did, and I was telling y'all last week that I started to cut these little, see these little threads that are sticking out? I started to cut those off and then thought, wait a minute, rope sitting out on a dock all the time would end up having some little, it just gives it extra character. So I'm going to leave that. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Polly. You know what? I don't know. I'm going to come in here and iron this paint to make sure it's set. It's dry, so I'm going to iron it. But I'm sorry. I don't know how to tell anybody. I guess what I could do is get it set up and send out. Sometimes I'll send out what I think is going to be the email address. But, okay, I sent Marcia a little email to say, oh, Marcia, don't get, I didn't want her to worry because I think she joins us on her telephone, so she doesn't have a big screen to see what's going on. All right, so what I wanted to do with this is I didn't want to have a very wide border. The reason I didn't want a wide border is it's a small quilt, and I felt like this needs to be the focus. Since I frame my art quilts as if they were a piece of art, I always like finding an inner border, a narrow inner border, to look like the mat board when you frame an art piece. And so, there we go. So I wanted to, I love this because it looks like a rice paper or a rice wallpaper, and I love that. I thought, boy, that looks really good. So then I found a black for the frame because I usually look in the piece of art itself and look for that for what colors I'm going to mat it and frame it with. In this one, this dark black line and the dark birds begged for the black border. Then these neutrals are what helped me know that this is what I wanted to frame it. You don't want colors that, you wouldn't want to put like a red inner border here or a green because you don't find that in the work itself. So you kind of look at that. Yeah, oh, way to go. There you go, Miss Marcia. So, and then here, I did do hand embroidery with the seagrasses, and so I'm very happy. So now, I showed last week that I sewed this inner border and the wide border binding, whatever you want to call it. I sewed those together first. and then went down the quilt. And I was trying to figure out, how do I finish off the top and bottom edges? And that's when I said, well, you know what? I think it's going to have to be a square frame. I love, 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 love mitering my corners. But I said, no, I don't think that's going to work for this one because of the way this is supposed to look like a mat board in a frame. So I butted the edges, but left extra in the corners. Now let me see. Here is my needle. Here is my thread. And I'm not going to do this whole side. I just want to show you a couple close-ups. Oops. Okay, we got that threaded. All right, let me bring this down now. I love this new little camera. Mark has done an amazing thing with me. And today when I realized I set it up wrong, I thought I didn't know he was in the room, and I got really angry. And then went, oh, sorry. I said I just wanted to let out some of my frustration. Normally I try to hold it in. And you know what happens if you hold in too much frustration. So, okay, here we go. But, because I'm mostly a pretty happy person, but sometimes I can get pretty angry. Okay, so what I've done is I made the black piece here was wider. It was like a good 5 inches wide. And it was sewn to this, okay? Then this side panel ends right here. This is the top. And what I ended up doing is I stopped this double piece at the end of this. Then this ran up to right there. Then I pieced a separate square in right in the corner, okay? Because I knew that I wanted this to end in a nice tight U-turn. Well, not corner, 90-degree corner. All right, so then what I did is I flipped it over and tried to figure out how wide I wanted the black to be, and flip this over, tucking in the edge, and see, it got like a big look here. There's probably a specific name for this that I'm not thinking of right now, but I'm just going to show you just a couple stitches here, because what I do is where I come up and just catch the edge of the black fabric here, I go straight back down and go somewhere in the batting in the middle. Don't ever let it come through this side. And so then I come up about 1/4 of an inch away, go back down into that middle batting, come up 1/4 of an inch away. And this is how you get invisible stitches, because the moving forward of the thread happens in the batting, not here where you would see it. So where I've come up, right here, where I've come up, I go straight down into the middle. You can feel I have my one finger underneath here. So if I were to come through that fabric, it would prick my finger and let me know. So these are the stitches. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to knot it off so I can use the same needle, and I'm just going to make about 3 knots pretty close to the bottom of the thread, but enough to let me go back under, lose it in the batting. I'll pull it up over here. Okay. I was up till 3:30 trying to finish this. Finally said, I can't do anymore. I'm getting so punch drunk from sleepiness. Then I went, are you ready for this? I went back to bed and was wide awake. And stayed wide awake until after 6 a.m. So that's why I'm a little concerned. I'm going to just give this an iron. The main thing when you do this kind of style binding slash border is making sure everything is crisp and nice. You want a nice straight, well ironed edge. Now I'm going to show you how in the world do you finish off these corners, because on the front it's all fine. It's just they butt up, there's a little filler piece, all that's good. Alright, so I'm going to take off this pin here and show you. Whoops, okay. Alright, so now I've started sewing here and gone around. If you want, you might want to leave a little touch more opening here to work with, but let's see how I do. Alright, so what this is, see how you have this, here is the square that I sewed on right here to finish off, because this stopped here, this side stopped here. I put a nice square in the middle, and see my strips of leftover batting that I put in? What I did is use tacky glue and put a couple little dots, so you see how it's stuck there, and then when I do the quilting, then it will be firmly attached and won't move around inside the binding border. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I grab this fabric. Let me grab my scissors. I grab this fabric and I pull it out straight here. I pull it down straight here, and then see how I kind of have it pinched, so both sides are kind of pinched. I come up a good ½ inch, maybe a touch more, and I cut at about a 45-degree angle. Okay, so this is what I have left over that I can throw away. Then I come back and lay this side smoothly down, making sure that it stays straight across the bottom. Now I'm going to come underneath this and pin it so I don't have to fight with it later. Alright, then I come over here, and this side has to be tucked under. Okay, so this is looking, making sure I've got a nice square corner here. I'm going to give it a little press so it'll help it hold that shape. Okay, then you have to make sure you give it a little tuck under here. This batting is a little, it wants to show a little bit, so I'm going to nip it back just a touch. It was a little bit long right there. So just nip it back just a touch. There we go. Because you want it to come up right here to that edge. So let me fold this back down. Then this needs to be brought back out. I folded this part under just a little bit much. Okay. Alright. So I've got that. Then this is tucked under, and this right here is tucked under. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, because I don't want it to move anywhere, is I'm going to put a pin in right here. Then look at it again. Let me get some of these little threads from under here, because they don't need to be showing. Okay. Alright. So here, whoops, let me get this. Okay. And there's little threads that I can pull out there later. But this is looking pretty good. And I'll do one more press just to make sure I've got it where I want it. You know what I'm thinking? I just realized something. This wasn't perfectly straight. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to trim this side back just a little so I don't have too much bulk at the corner. Then I'm going to come here, tuck this. Yeah, it was trying to come out a little bit this way. So I'm going to kind of bring it back in. Now tuck this under. All right. And I'm going to give it a press to hold it in position. Now, there we go. That see, it even fits better. I don't have it a little bit tight at that corner. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to, I had to lift it up because I knew I'd gone into the corner for the ironing cover, board cover. All right, so I'm going to come in here. Let me pull this up again. All right, I'm going to come and run the needle up under here to hide the knot. And now, since I went inside the fabric and I don't want that to show, I'm going to come one thread away and bring that needle back, whoops, back to the edge. There we go. All right, come on. Okay. So now the needle, the thread and the needle are buried in there. Hold on. Okay, let me, oh, there it goes. All right, here, tuck this under, get those little threads out. Whoops, there's another thread. I don't want to cut my stitching needle thread. All right, tuck that thread out of the way. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to make sure that this is sewn down. Little tiny areas. Let me bring you closer to this edge. Little tiny areas can give you trouble. So just take a nice little stitch there. All right, so now I'm going to stitch these two pieces together. Anywhere you think they might shift and want to move, you put a stitch there to hold them in place. And now I'm just going to do that same kind of slip stitch up to anchor what is a miter on the back. But you saw how easy, once you bring it together, you cut it at an angle, easy peasy. And even on the front of this, it's not mitered, it's just butt jointed. On the back you have, and it's kind of like an envelope binding, you might want to call it. Oh, it's the truth, Miss Jo. I do sleep so much better. And in fact, he says at the beach, same thing with him, we're just attached. You know, like I said, it's almost 21 years. I guess we're going to make it. So, but see, I just do nice, and I don't do big stitches. I do them a little bit smaller when I'm on this miter. Ooh, boy, that is bright now. Let me, okay, maybe move back just a little. I had the window blind still open. So you just go up like this. Whoops. Got my, there. I had my thread caught in. And let me see. Sewing black thread on black fabric is probably the toughest thing I've ever done. You can much more easily see white thread on white fabric. But black and black, it totally disappears. So now I'm all the way into the corner. Now this is an art quilt, so do I have to really do all these stitching? No, not really. Now, if this wasn't so long, this is over 3 inches here. I would just run the thread back under and keep going there. But that is too much play. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same as I did before. Make a few knots at the bottom of this, near the bottom, but not right at the bottom, because I want it to go into the fabric and get caught in the batting. So what I've done my knots now, and see they're really close. There you go, really close. And then I just put my needle in, aim for the middle of the batting, and then pull it up about a half an inch away, and there you go. Now you have it perfectly sewn, mitered back with this, and the front's great, and the back is great, and it's always good to give something a press once you've done something with it. And there is our edge. So all I have to do now, which I'm not going to do right here in front of you because it's kind of like watching paint dry, but I'm going to bury my needle part way to make sure I don't lose it. And then this is a group of pins that go upstairs, so I'm going to put this extra pin back in here. When I get upstairs, I've just got not even 2 feet left to do, and then it will be done. Then I haven't decided how I'm going to quilt this, but I need to make sure that the batting stays in place and that it has a consistency similar to this. So I may do, I don't know, I might do some little, maybe a little gentle wave here or 2 lines, and then I've got to figure out, you know what, it would make sense if I did some kind of little wave somewhere. But I haven't been able to think yet, well, how am I going to quilt this? So I haven't done it yet. So, but anyway, so there we go. Now once it has its label on, it will be finished. And there it is. So I'm happy with it, and I like the way it turned out. It's more finished and complete than my last one. Mark and I hope to move closer to the coast, so it will be good to have in a house. Swirls on the black. That is a good idea, especially when you think, because see, here's how I did most of it, because it was so already heavily sewn that I just put those. So there we go. That's that. Now, I'll put that away. I know what to do with you right now. Before I change the camera angle, I get some emails from different companies, like Marshall's Dry Goods, where I get most of my fabric now. And the other day, I got a Bear Creek quilt shop. They're from Oregon. And oh my gosh, I saw this fabric and said, I have to have it. You know how when you get a fabric that you know you just have to have? And this was it. And what am I going to do with it? I have not a clue. But it was just one of those fabrics I said, if I don't get it, I will kick myself for a long time. Now, I got it from Bear Creek Quilting, but it is a Deborah Edwards of Northcott fabric. Okay, and it is lovely. It has a beautiful hand. The colors are just so incredible. And you know what I was thinking the other day is, for Christmas, I asked Santa, and he was kind enough to get it for me. I asked for these squares in the rainbow of colors, and I'm going to take and do another color wash quilt. Well, guess what? All of the colors in that color wash quilt are right here. So now I'm thinking, how can I combine this with the color wash? And I haven't figured it out yet, but I think this is just so beautiful. So luckily, I had a $20 gift card left over as a gift at my wedding shower at the retreat, And I was whoever gave me that gift card, thank you, because I was able to get a yard and a half of this from I love it, love it. But yes, it is boho blooms. Oh my gosh, so you do have some of this. Isn't it just beautiful? And it comes with a blue background and all this, but I saw this and I had to have it. So I try not to buy too much fabric now and use my stash, because I don't want that leftover fabric to just go in a dumpster. But every once in a while I see a fabric that makes my heart go pity-pat, and this was it. So thank you for whoever got me that gift card, and I was able to get this. Alrighty, now, so this week, because I was so sleep deprived and the dogs had a grooming appointment, that morning was real hard because I had to have them at the vet before 9 a.m. and I get them groomed at the vet, and they did a health, hold on. They did a health check while I brought them in to groom, which, boy, is that nice. It makes it so convenient. I'm going to go ahead and thread this because I thought I wanted to take a moment to show you how I sew the leaves. This is the border for the sparrow quilt. I've completely finished one border section because I wanted to see how it looked. Now with the other three, I am doing them each step at the same time, so that when the border is finished, the quilt is going to be ready for the long arm. So I think I got it on. Yay, Deb. Alright, I remember having a sewing group when I was the costumer for that museum in Maryland, and the ladies were saying, I can't see to thread the needle, and I thought, that must be awful to not be able to see to thread the needle. Well, guess where I am now? It's getting harder and harder to see. Alright, so this is silk thread, and it's silk thread from Superior Threads. I love Superior Threads. I love, love, love YLI silk thread. But this is, to me, the silk thread makes a difference when you do applique. So please consider it. It helps your stitches to disappear. Like, look at the front, and I'm just picking, whoops, let me get closer to the light. I'm just picking a random area, and look, you cannot see any stitches. But if you look on the back, come on, if you look on the back, there are the stitches. But the silk thread tends to melt into the fabric. It's so wonderful. So this week I had to make some more green leaves. And what I do is I cut out a freezer paper pattern. Then I iron the bad side, the wrong side of the fabric to the sticky side of the freezer paper. Then I take a glue stick. This time I used a school glue, what is it, Crayola or whatever, glue stick. Very, very simple and inexpensive. You don't have to have anything fancy. Now I'm going to show you how do I stitch, and then I come back with tacky glue, put 2 dots of glue so it's in place. I don't have to keep making these decisions. I don't lose anything. So this is how I'm going to show you how do I do applique on this border. And because this is, to me, this is simple, mindless, something to do with my hands while I'm binge watching a Netflix series. Simple, simple, simple. Okay, so now I came up from behind and I got the point right there. I end up putting 3 to 4 stitches at the point because the points are very vulnerable. You catch an iron or a sewing machine doing the quilting, the points are very vulnerable. So now, and the freezer paper is still in this because the freezer paper keeps it all nice and tidy. So I go up here and I try just to grab one thread of the outside of this. You want to sew onto the fabric only if you can do that. So see how I'm coming real close. I go, it's the same as putting on the binding on a quilt. I go down where I came back up. I travel on the back side of the fabric so you can't see it from the front. Now, if you haven't gotten yourself any silk thread, they can be pricey. So what I recommend is this. Mostly buy gray, a nice steel gray silk thread. You can buy different colors as you see them on sale or you have a little extra money, but you don't have to match every color. I didn't think about this when I bought my silk threads, so I bought the predominant primary colors and a couple secondary colors. But you could do just what I'm doing with the gray thread. Gray is an amazing neutral. And in fact, let me just show you, okay? I'm going to show you, let me see, move this just a touch. Here we go. This one's open. But I'm going to show you white thread, cream thread. Okay. Here is white thread on this blue background. Let me bring the camera down just a little. So here is the white, the white thread. Okay? And you see how you can see it pretty easily on this fabric. There it is. Now, let's try cream colored thread. Now, that blends a little bit better, but you can still see it. See? But now watch what gray thread does. Gray is an amazing, most of my threads that I piece with, almost all are gray threads. Look at that, how it virtually disappears into it. So here, oops, don't slide off. Here's the white, here is the gray, and here is the cream. So, yeah, the cream is better than the white, but that gray, and I sometimes will get a medium or a light gray, but that's just a little thing to tell you that you don't have to spend a lot on thread that matches everything. That's kind of time gone by. If I were going to do top stitching, yes, it has to match. But as long as you're doing clothing or quilting, a good neutral gray is fabulous. Alright, so I'm just going to keep going around here because I want to show you what I do next. Alright. One thing I've noticed is be careful. Don't let a silk thread get tangled. Don't yank on it too hard because it will break. Because it's just so, it's thin as a human hair. But no wonder it blends in so well. Alright, so you see how I'm just staying right close to the edge. Let me hurry up and get around here. Otherwise, y'all will be taking an afternoon nap. Okay. I always worry. So I know some people actually do the sewing in front of people, but I always worry y'all will get bored. It's like, I know how to sew. I don't need to see everything. Okay, now let me get around this corner. When Mark came home a day early, it means I didn't have everything ready for the show. And I tell myself, go get ready for the show. And I'm like, I don't want to leave him. I'm so excited he's home. So, okay, let's see. I'll come back over here and just kind of grab it, fold it up into the palm of your hand so that, whoops, let me bring this back up just a little. All right. When I'm using this little camera, I have to look over at an angle to see my screen to see if I have you in the camera view. And I'm sorry I don't always catch it right away. Okay, this is tricky right there because that's where you have 2 layers of this fabric, 4 layers of that fabric. So sometimes if you have weak hands, just keep a little pair of gentle, clean pliers near you. And if you get to that point, then you might have to use the pliers to pull the needle through. All right, here is where I glued and it's folded over. What I'm going to do is take it and tuck it under. Okay. Let's see. I don't want it sticking up too much, but tuck that bit under. You don't want to leave any raw edges exposed because they will unravel. This quilt is liable to be laundered, so. And at that corner, you take nice small stitches to go around. And often on a corner, I will use 4 stitches, 2 on each side of that point. Okay, so now almost, let me speed up right here. I relax. The moment I start doing hand sewing, I relax. Hand sewing when I first started was something that I was never going to do. I don't want to do any applique. It was a nasty word to me. And now it's something that I love. And you won't believe this, but I'm really anxious to do some hand quilting. So I'm going to have to find a project around here to finish that. Or a project that would be a good candidate for hand quilting. Alright, so now I'm coming up. What I want to leave is I want to leave a good 1.5 inches of space that's unsewn. And the reason I want to do that is I want to take out the paper. There are several ways to take out the template paper or freezer paper. There's several ways. Now I'm going to put this needle conveniently over here in this stem. Alright. I want to take out the freezer paper. Cheap paper, unless it's archival, will start to disintegrate inside a fabric. Especially if you launder it, if you scrunch it. Alright, so what I've done is I've loosened the little edge that I tucked over the freezer paper. Now, it's the next thing that's pretty easy to do is just take your finger in or a little stiletto and break off where you ironed that waxy surface down. Now the other, where I put the glue, that's a little trickier. You've got to use a little more force, but you want to pull the paper away from the glue where you glued it down to the base of this fabric. So you want to be careful because you don't want to distort things, and you don't want, there we go, just kind of get in there with your fingernail and pull it. Now you can use hemostats if you want to pull it out, but I kind of like doing it by hand if the leaf is big enough. And support these edges. See, don't just yank it. Support your edges over here because they've got the silk thread. So you don't come in manhandling it. Just be gentle. And sometimes you have to reach in a little bit, pull it a little bit more loose. And there you go. Now here is your paper template. This is no good anymore. I'm not going to reuse it. If you had a big project, you could reuse this probably about 8 times and still get some little stickiness. Alright, so now the paper is removed. So what you want to do is tuck in your seam allowances like this. Grab your needle and you finish it off. So I've rubbed it down, gotten it all comfy cozy again. Whoops, let me see how my thread is hooked in here. Alright, okay, got my thread loose. Now I'm going to tighten these the thread where my stitches were down this side, because all this pulling and tugging loosens them up. Make sure everything's tucked under. Make sure it's nice and flat on your hand, and pick it up again. So now, and I want to get down here to show you how I'm going to finish off this point. But this is just a good little tutorial on how do I deal with it. Now, before I get down to the point, I do want to cover something. Some people would prefer to make a cut here and pull out the freezer paper or the paper template from the back. I don't like doing that because I feel like every cut, unnecessary cut you make in the fabric is a weak point. And we don't need the weak point right there. And you know, you could take and try to sew them up back together, but now you've created all of these raw edges that are they don't have to be washed to start unraveling, just touched and mussed with. Alright, so we're getting up close to this end right here. I tucked it under where I started, but it's not tucked under here. Usually I just take my fingernail and try to tuck it under. Then I make sure it's perfect with my needle. And this is where you could do needle turn applique. It's very popular because it's very easy for that needle to just kind of tuck in the fabric underneath that seam. Okay, so now I've got my fingernail tightly tucking in that point. I'm going to start making my stitches a little smaller as I get closer to the point, because you will find with any amount of applique that you do, it's the points that are the most vulnerable. So see, my stitches are much smaller. And in fact, some long armors really don't like applique work because it's risky to them. If they run the presser foot into a seam, they could risk ripping it open. So, okay, now I'm at the tip. I've already shortened my stitches up to it. I did one stitch right here near the end. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do another stitch. And then, so now there have been at least 2 stitches here. Make sure if you see something sticking out, tuck it, put another stitch right there, and then come back around and put another. So even though I already had 1 stitch on the end, and if you're careful and use silk thread, they just get buried and they just become invisible. And now that I know that when I do the quilting on this, and if I bump that tip, it's not going to go anywhere. So then I just make nice tight knots on the back of this, like this. Now, one thing I've got to tell you that I'm not very good at, because I am attention deficit and I tend to be easily distractible, is I think I forget where I've put my needle. So what I'm going to do, put this in a place where I can easily see it. That little leaf I just did, and the more times you go in and out of the fabric, the more secure your needle is. Okay? Don't do it so much that you lose it inside the fabric. But alright, so that is, I just did a complete leaf. I've taken out the paper, thrown it away, and there we go. So, and then next week, I know I'll probably be done with these, and I will make sure to show you one more time how to do a stuffed cherry on the branch. So here they are. All of the branches are sewn down. Now I do all of the leaves, then I'll do all of the cherries. I like it that way, just instead of switching back and forth so much. Now for the cherries, I do, since I have green thread, green silk thread, I use this for the leaves. The cherries, I do have some red silk, and I use that for the cherries. But, like I say, if you're careful with your stitches, you could use gray thread. All right, coming back to the main camera, if I can find my... Mark used this... Oh, where is... I tell you, I get lost with this... Oh, come on, Deb. Ah! You posted your boho project. Oh, yay! Oh, wonderful. I love seeing y'all's chats. Oh my gosh, we had 2 people. I'm having trouble with this silly thing. Come on. Okay, let's see. Ah, I just saw it. There it is. Yay. Okay. So, I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway. All right. So, the main thing we're going to work on today, which I wanted to have farther done, but sorry. I really did, but didn't get it done. We're going to work on our new embellished quilt project, and hopefully I have I'm hoping I brought down, I might not have brought down the fusible interfacing, but I have a bolt over here if I need to go to it. All right, before we do show and tell, after show and tell, we're going to work on this seascape. But before we do show and tell, I love this container. Thank you, Miss Becky Young, for doing the prizes for our retreat, because I love having everything in place. So this is my box for my button making. And for the Dorset buttons, for Yorkshire buttons, I've got lots of buttons. And, let me see. I've got bunches. But last week, I made this. This is a Dorset, a classic Dorset button. But using the DMC floss in a variegated, really, really made this pretty. I just love that. Love, love, love. All right. So then, this week, with Mark gone, I was flipping around through YouTube channels when I came upon a woman who said, I'll show you an easy way to make a Yorkshire button. And you know what? I forgot to check. I forgot to check her name. I want to give her credit. And I'm not sure I can find it. Let me see if I can, because this woman deserves the credit. Let me tell you. She was great, and I'm going to tell you why I say she's so great. She's not trying to sell anything. And I mean, I have no problem with people selling stuff. No problem. If I could, I would. But I love that she just does it for the joy of it. So I'm going to look up my history and see if I can find her. It might... Oh, here it is. Okay. The name of her site is Create and Craft with Christine. I hope I didn't just leave the channel, but Create and Craft with Christine. Christine is C-H-R. So, I just want to let you know. Okay, so now, let me come back. I hope I didn't cut y'all out. No, I didn't. Thank goodness. Wouldn't that be awful? Okay. So it was Create and Craft with Christine. All right. So she, what caught my attention is because she had a piece of cardboard in her hand. I thought, I love this woman. So she told you, she gave instructions on how to make your own cardboard pattern. And there are some templates, plastic templates out there. They call them looms, but I'm not sure why. But there are some that you can buy. But until you know whether you like this or not, what I did is I got some slick, some of those like heavy postcard mailers with the nice smooth edges, and I laminated my cardboard. But you could just cut out cardboard from a box. So now I'm going to switch camera so that I can show you how you make this. I did it as if it were a clock, okay? And what, if you'll notice on the back, you only have threads hooked on these little flower points. And I didn't have time to, I wanted to have one fully made and then show you how to start on. But what you're going to do, normally you'd start at the 12 and you pretend I don't have all this on, and you'd go around like that. See how I did? I didn't do over and under. I just did around the little flower point. Then I came over here and did this way. And you see what happens? You want them to cross in the middle. And so then I came around and just caught the top of this, and I'm going to go this way. And, or I think I might have done that one. Or I come around this one, I think I go this way, yes. And then I come around that one, and I guess, do I go around that way? It's tricky, but what you want is you just want to put thread on the back on these little loops. Now, you notice that right here, I put a hole in the center of this jig-a-ma-jig, and I'll put pictures on our group's IO of this, but also, now you know where to find the instructions. But let me pull these back off because I'm already, you go around until all of these, when you first do it, it's like you're doing every other one. But you go around again till all of these have a thread on the back, which ends up making the spokes have two threads. See the two different colors on here. And once you get the doubled spokes on the front and only this little bit. Now this is where you started with it. And you want a nice tail. You come in through the hole, come up in the middle, and then start doing the wrapping. Going across, making sure that they cross in the center. Okay? Then what you do after you've got all the spokes and they cross in the center is you just start as if you're making a Dorset button. So in this case, when I did the first one, I made sure to wrap that thread. Then I went back around it and went through two and came up like this. Now, what you basically are doing is wrapping your thread around each of these spokes. And that's how you tie the whole thing together. That's how you create the beautiful pattern. So watch this. I totally wrapped this right here. Totally wrapped that one. And came under this one. So now I know I've got to go back one so that this will be totally wrapped. Then I go through the next one. And it helps if you kind of angle your needle to go outside there, because it's just easier. You don't want to get hung up in all these spokes. And then keep your rings of thread pushed in nice and snug. Okay, so now I have to totally wrap this one, so you go back one and go past under another one and then come out right here. Whoops, I pulled my needle off. And this, it helps if you can kind of somehow wrap it like that. Keep it out of the way. What is so cool about this, let's say you're making an outfit or you're making a quilt vest or quilt jacket. You could make corresponding colors, buttons, all on your own. Now you're wondering, if you do a Dorset button, you've got a plastic ring in there that stays in there. What do you do with this one? Well, let me get a few more rings around, and then I will show you. Now, I made this big. I understand that. So it takes a few more wraps around, but I wanted you to be able to see it. You can make these any size you want, and I just start with as close to a perfect circle as I can get, and then mark the lines across, and then do a little nip out. Make sure it's just deep enough. Whoops. What have I done here? Make sure it's just deep enough. Okay, and I've got this thread I'll hold on to, because you will use that thread besides just holding on to things. Hold on. What have I've made a little mistake. All right. And what I may do is work on it while we're doing the show and tell. I've never had much luck with doing anything while I'm doing the slideshow for that, but we'll see. Alright, so I just keep going around and around, and it's just go back one, and then go past a new one, and pull. So go back one, come past the second one, come out, pull. And you just, this is so simple. And, you know, you can picture these on a child's dress. So start looking, thinking about your floss and variegated flosses. You could use a pearl cotton, but I wouldn't do anything too thick with this kind. And you'll see why when I'm about done. All right. And then every, you know, so often just go in there and push it to the center, because you want to keep it nice and tightly woven. And this is what you're actually doing. You are weaving a button. For the same reason that the Dorset buttons were made, these were made. It gave people a button to use on their clothing with using scrap wool from spinning and weaving. So, you know, can you just imagine the little girls picking up the little scraps of wool and making these? I don't know what pattern material they did. I don't think they would have cardboard. but it's pretty cool. I love these. It's very important for me to continue the home arts or the women's arts, because they were brilliant, and they were creative, even though it was a necessity item. They were so creative. And happy people find a way to brighten their world. And to some of those people, these were very, very important. So, I love this. All right. So I'm going to stop there for the moment and do show and tell. And then, don't worry, I've got some exciting stuff to show you for our latest folded and embellished work here, okay? So this one's, the next one is going to be even more fun than the last one. Okay. Oh my gosh, Laura, you're right. That would be a perfect thing. Now you knew what you were doing. You were doing Yorkshire buttons, an English historic craft. What a great idea to use paper plates. Yeah, you could glue some paper plate circles, smaller, of course. All right, let's now look at show and tell. All right, and let me, right while we're here, I'm going to, where is it? I'm going to show you that embellished artwork so you can see why I'm excited to do this. Whoops, let me move it. Okay, here we go. All right, I saw this for an ad, and I know that it is AI generated. There's some little tricks you can tell that it's not real. But I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. How do I make this bigger? Let's see. Try that. Well, let me try it over here. Oops. Oh boy. Now, whoops, let me... there we go. Okay. You can tell this is AI generated. The flippers don't look normal. You look at it and go, how would I make that out of real fabric? I think some of this is all real fabric, but some of the things added. If you notice, how in the world would anybody make such a fantastic turtle? But what I loved when I saw this photo, and I know it makes you, it's an ad to make you want to click and pay whatever the price is for these pillows, and you're not going to get something that looks like this. But I love getting ideas, and I'll get my ideas from anything. Now remember, Miss Joe, I was telling you I think I can use a Dorset button technique to make starfish. Look at this. So if I make 5 spokes on a piece of cardboard so I can get it off, I could take and wrap the spokes around and around and around, just like I showed you on the cardboard. Instead of having 12 spokes, I'll have 5. So I'm excited. I can look at that and think that would work perfectly. All right. But we're going to, when we do this, we're going to do some French knots. We're going to use some beads to give a little glitter to the sand. We're going to come in here. I'm planning on putting some lace on the edge of this fabric so that when I tuck it under and fold it under, it's going to really look like the foam at the edge of the water. Here is another, here's another starfish up here. And I think I can make those. Now, let's say, okay, let's say, well, I don't know about the Dorset button thing. Do you have polymer clay? All you have to do is make a polymer clay starfish and make a little, what do you call the little hard loop on the back of a button? Oh, I just had the name in my head and it popped right out. So, but you can put that on the bottom so you can sew it. But I went looking through my stash, and because you could take and paint your own turtles, cut them out and put them on the quilt. But I love the way this fabric has been manipulated. Maybe that's what we'll start calling it. Manipulated and embellished. Manipulated and embellished seascape. But doesn't this look cool? I love how they did it. So that's what we're going to work on when we come back from show and tell today. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So just because you don't have a turtle that looks like this, we're going to come up with our own ideas. Trust me. So I think this is going to be fun. All right, so now let me shrink this down. Let me push escape. Okay, here we go. Now you can do this with other kind of animals. Let me show you. Here is a dragonfly and flowers. It's just about manipulating and embellishing to give a more three-dimensional look to a small art quilt work. See that? And you know what? If you have a printed panel and you just want to put some stuffing behind it, put some batting behind it, and then practice your great stitches to give it 3D realism. But you don't have to do another seascape. Although look at this, isn't that cool? So it's a way of how do you fold the fabric right here to make it look like it's a three-dimensional shell. You make your flippers and you put batting under them before you sew them down so it gives it dimension. That's what we're looking at. That's what caught my attention. And here is, oh, I bet you know what? Bonnie would love this. So, whoops, no, let me go back, back, back. Isn't that beautiful? But it's a way to inspire us to try to figure out how we could add dimension. This, you could just have this color fabric, maybe an ombre, and it's just by putting maybe 2 layers of batting under it and stitching the fine lines, you make it look like the book has pages. So, aren't these cool? So anyway, I just wanted to show you that. Now let's go to show and tell and see what we've got today. So Miss Alberta got these into me. I'm so tickled because they are lovely. Look at these table runners, bed runners that she has been working on. And I love her use of color in this one. Look how it's almost monochromatic, but not quite. Isn't that lovely? She just has a real eye for color. Way to go, Miss Alberta. And then this one catches your eye. This is wonderful too, because it really catches your eye. I think a block like this is called turnstile. I'm not sure though. She probably could tell us. But isn't that beautiful? I love it. Our time to quilt turtle. That's so cute, Marcia. We love having Marcia, and don't forget to thank Marcia and Joe Sews, our wonderful moderators. They're so fun, informative, and caring. All right, so thank you, Miss Alberta. We loved seeing that. And then Betty Meisner sent in this wonderful Donna Jordan quilt. In honor, she made it out of a Donna Jordan pattern. The other day, I happened to flip past channels, and I saw Donna Jordan's husband carrying on the channel. Oh my gosh, what special people. What special people. He is a dear heart. Okay, so now, then Bonnie had a wonderful finish on her hummingbird quilt. Isn't that wonderful? And I love the trumpet-shaped flowers, which hummingbirds love, the fact that they're red and trumpet-shaped. I put out 2 of my first hummingbird feeders because they're due back anytime. So I've got some nice, I always put just like a little touch extra sugar in their first ones because I want them to have, they've flown a long way. So, and I love Miss Charlene's star quilts. And I love how when you look at them a certain way, the stars look 3-dimensional because of this block in the corner. Just nice job, Miss Charlene. Now let's see. I don't think I have. Oh yes, here they are. All right. So Mark was kind enough to keep me in the loop with pictures from his beach trip. This is on the sound side, and they had a dredge working to build up the sandbar in the center. Or I think, you know what? I better back that up. I think they were trying to get some sand off the bottom so they can replenish the beach area. So he's really lucky that where he goes, the beach and the sound are only maybe 200 yards apart. So it's really nice. And honestly, for me, I like the sound side better. The beach is dramatic and beautiful, but it can be loud and noisy and not easy to swim in. Look at this. This is from the balcony near his room. Look at that sunset. And he said, I wanted you to have another sunset to really see, what they look like. And I think that's so pretty. I love that. But look at this nice boat. And that's on a boat lift. It's out of the water. Would be nice, I tell you. I could live there for a long time and be very happy. And here's that dredge again. Gotta see, what are they doing? What are they doing? So I would assume if it's digging up sand, I don't know if it's pumping it up, that it's got a place to pump it into. So, and you know, that is a problem living on the shore. Nothing is for free. You're constantly struggling to keep your beach from eroding. Erosion is one of our biggest problems nowadays. But here's the dock. There's the dredger. Ooh, now what is that thing right there? I wonder. But look at the color of the sky. Look at the clouds. Aren't they beautiful? All right, look at this one. The colors in this are exquisite. Every time I think, okay, I made a seascape, I'm done. Then I see another photograph like this one, and nope, there are more seascapes in my future, for sure. Isn't that beautiful? No wonder this is so good for his soul. So this is the hotel, nothing fancy, good fisherman's hotel, but that is his beloved bike. That's Bertha, and she's a beauty. She is a beauty. And I think she's now about 25 years old. But let me tell you, he takes good care of his women's, and she is very loved. So it's a Kawasaki and Victory. It's a touring bike. It's very big and heavy. I love it. Okay. Now, oh, that's just something I saw somewhere and thought, oh, those are pretty colors. Here is a sight, a picture of the moon, and you can see the darker side, the outline of it. So pretty. Oh, she was born in 2000. Oh, God, that is so cute. Yep. I'm just glad. I mean, you know, I'm glad he lets me hang out in her presence. So Bertha's special. And there's one more picture I've got to show you. When you talk about colors, oh my gosh, I told him this would be a wonderful quilt because it has, look at this beautiful green over here, the lights under the dock. Then look at the blues and the peaches, and oh my gosh. What I would do though is cut that dredge out. So, like, uh-oh, I don't want to see the dredge. But isn't that just gorgeous? I love the fishing poles sitting up in this boat, ready to be lowered down and go out and do a day's worth of fishing. I know. I have ridden it one time. I've tried to ride it a couple times, but I've got to be honest, I'm absolutely petrified of it. I feel so bad. I'm sorry, Mark. So, let's see now. Let's go back to show and tell. We're going to be looking. Oh, that's right. Debbie. Oh, I didn't show this. These vignettes. I love how Debbie does this. I mean, look at that. She uses her hallway, her staircase, as a gallery. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? Yep, Bertha Butt, one of the Butt sisters. I told him I would never get on a bike that wasn't wider than my backside either. But he's a very careful driver. It has nothing to do with him. I've had a lifelong fear of motorcycles. In fact, let me tell you what. The most loving thing I do for Mark is to encourage him to go on his trips. When he pulls out of the driveway, it is such a scary, scary moment. And when he comes back, it's the happiest. So I do have a terrible fear. But look at this, and she changes these out. Isn't that wonderful? Uses what could just be a boring plain space and turns it into an art gallery. So that makes a happy home. Way to go, Miss Debbie. Aren't y'all glad she moved from Houston to here at the East Coast with us? And here is her folded star. Absolutely beautiful. You have a senior citizen scooter. There you go. If it had 3 wheels on it, I might go on it with him. But anyway. Okay. As a child, an uncle of mine fell off a bike and a motorcycle and broke his leg so badly that he almost lost it. And that impacted me very hard. So this is Miss Julie, and I love this. Talk about wait a minute. When you sew applique. Talking about applique. This is fun applique. Yeah, I can tell I've only had 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep. I can tell. All right, so now, then we're going to, Miss Mary. My goodness, Miss Mary's been busy. Well, you know, she had her next to the last English paper piecing block done. Then she stopped and did Dorset buttons. I love these. And I love she puts her own touch on it right away. Then she did this very difficult English paper piece. So she's really moving along. I get so tickled watching her. Way to go, Miss Mary. So now let's see. Oh, I have to show you this one. This is her version of the narrow strip seascape. And I loved all the fabric she used. She is, what I admire about Mary is she has a childlike abandon, a childlike love of quilting that makes them a joy to look at. I mean, she doesn't get hung up on, oh, does this match this? Is this good? She loves what she does, and it shows. And it makes us so happy. I just love it. Okay. Now, let's see where we're going. Oh, SJ. Okay, SJ's our dear friend from England. And her daughter is working on her A-levels over in England. And I do believe the A-levels are how you get into universities over there. And so her daughter wanted to do something for creative expression type thing. And she wanted to represent one of the suffragettes who fought for the right to vote. And she had the clothing, but she didn't have a sash to show her as an early suffragette. So look what SJ did for her. Isn't that wonderful? So I love that she supports her daughter. Her daughter's doing beautifully with her education, and how wonderful. I miss those days of making things like that for the kids, you know. When you have a 45-year-old, 46-year-old, it's like, that's so long ago. In fact, my son, he's going to be 39 this year. I remember making him a Power Ranger, the White Ranger suit, and he loved it. So, and in fact, I've got to contact him. Oh, Marcia, that's amazing. Marcia's mother was born in 1920. I've got to wish my son a happy, what did they say? Something May the 4th be with you. He loves Star Wars, so I've got to remember to send him something. A little text and say, yay, the 4th. Our last person is going to be this wonderful, I love this thing. That is so cute. So, and our sweet Miss Jo is working on hand embroidery stitches practice, and now has something she can really enjoy with that practice. All right. So thank you so much for sending the photos in. We absolutely love them. And people are always amazed when they see the beautiful works of art you do. All right. So I still haven't worked on this, but there is something very important to show you when it comes time to take it off. So let me see what we've got. I want to get started on this beach scene. So let me change us over to that. And this is how I am going. Whoops, let me move some stuff out of the way. All right. Look at some of this fabric I found. In fact, I think this might have come from Lisa. So this is great. Let me bring my light over here. All right. Now let's see. Okay. Okay. In fact, was there something I was going to show y'all? But I've got so many ideas for this year. Let's just see how many we can get through. I have got now here, I've got my scraps of batting, which are going to come in great with some of the couching and the, not really couching, trapunto work we're going to do. All right, so I'm going to move the laces out of the way for right now. Make sure my iron is on. And what I'm thinking of doing is I'm very inspired by, let me see, I'm very inspired by the one scene I've been showing you. So, I want to bring this up. Okay. So what they have is I think I'm going to do it facing, I'm left-handed, so I usually change things around. But what I'm going to do is start out with this. Now, with water, it gets darker the farther away it gets, and lighter the closer it gets to the shore. And it makes sense because it's not as deep. And you know, deeper things definitely tend to hold more shadows. Alright, so I've got this. Now I'm going to put this one out of the way. I don't think I need it again yet. Okay, I'm going to move my sands out of the way. This is supposed to be, I'll probably just have a little snippet of this on the edge. And everything you do, iron, and you know what? I think I'm going to give it a little spritz of starch, okay? Because this, I want it to be nice and firm and sturdy, so it will hold the folds when we start folding them. All right, so you're going to have to cut this bigger than you thought because you're going to have to have more room to, let me see. You're going to have more room to do the folding. Now look at this one. Oh my goodness. That is so pretty. I'm not sure. Well, actually, the color is a little off with the blue one, but that, oh my goodness. Hold on just a second. Let me see. What if, that is so pretty. I love this. I think I'm going to make this work. Oh, but see, it comes, the problem is I can't control how fast it changes. Okay, I think I'm still going to use it. Let me see. That is just so beautiful. I can't believe it. All right. You know, there are fabrics that you say, oh, that's too pretty to use. And yeah, that is true, but if you just leave it in your closet, there'll be a day when you no longer can quilt, and you've just missed it. It didn't ever get used, and I would say it's better to use it than to save. It's like the rainy day china, the, you know, the beautiful dress that you don't want to wear for just every day, and then all of a sudden you realize you've totally missed the boat. I don't think I'm going to use this other one. I think I'll just use this. Okay. And I don't want to make this too big because, oh, now the only problem with using that, oh, but look what it does work with it. And I think that would work with it. And even some of this. All right. So I think this dark one is going to be out for now. Okay. Here we go. We've got this. And we've got... because this one fabric does so much of the work for you. Let me bring this up. Okay. So now, which one reads darker? Or do we even need this one? Wow. Wow. Whoops. Sorry about that. I hope I didn't scare you. Yeah, I think I'm going to put this in at an angle. All right. Let me get this ironed. Alright, now you don't have to, this is going to be kind of in an angle like this. This will be kind of an angle like this. Alright, and let me trim this up with my longer scissors. If you have arthritis in your hands like I do, please consider getting yourself a Fisker product. The wonderful thing about it is the spring right here. It opens the scissors for you. And I do love that. I really love that. Alright, now this is where it gets a little tricky because you're going to be folding the fabric. So you've got to make each piece a little bigger, a little wider than you think you're going to need. And boy, I'm really loving these fabrics I chose. And that's why I end up with fabric stacked everywhere. In fact, I'll show you what I mean about fabric stacked everywhere. Oops. See the fabric stack on that desk right there? I get the room cleaned up. I start feeling really excited about it. And then, before you know it, I've stacked it up again. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is, let me do this again. Okay. This is going to be here. This is going to be here. And I'm going to cut this into a curve like this, and then take the two pieces extra, toss them out, and now I'm going to stitch this together so I have a good beginning. Okay, so I will bring this around. All right. All right. So what you're going to do is you're just going to, don't use a small stitch, use a longer 2.4 2.5, something like that. And I'm going to gently, with that long stitch, I'm going to sew this together. And you're trying to, you know, mostly match the edges, but be gentle, because what you want is you want that fabric to bend and stretch a bit so you can get that curve. The curve is the right curve because I laid them on top of each other and cut both through, both layers, to get the curve. And you think, oh, it's not going to fit right, but it does pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to take this back to the sewing machine, to the ironing board. Let's see what we've got. All right. Let's see how those pieces came together. All right. Yeah, and I did have this piece of fabric longer, wider than the top piece. All right. So now I've got a curve already built in. Now, this is just the doing the blank. Okay. Then I do, ooh, look at this. This one has a very nice light area. Okay, let's see. This is just going to be a little strip of color. This is not going to be that much, especially by the time you start tucking and folding. Okay. All right. Now, I like the way that the inspiration kind of came in from the corner. So this one is going to kind of do this. And you see I make the fabrics a little bit bigger so they have room for me to cut a curve to sew them together. So that's going to be the next piece to go right there. And then one more piece, which is right here. This is going to be for the very lightest edge. Now I know this is sky fabric, but trust me, it is going to work great for the frothy ocean. The good thing is this quilt is this small art quilt is going to be in an angle, and it's going to be scrunched up, and the scrunching up makes all the difference in the world. All right, so now this piece, I'm going to have it kind of come up and wrap just a touch. So, and this is going to look awfully long, but by the time you sew all this together and then do the scrunching and the folding and all of that, you're going to be surprised how small this piece actually ends up. All right, so now let me get this piece starched. I'll get these two pieces sewn together. Sew this together real quick. I love this kind of quilt because it reminds me of being a child and being in art class And I think, you know, from the time I was just little, I have loved arts and crafts because to me, that's playful time. And it's all possible. You give a child paper and crayons and everything is possible. Now I'm going to stitch these two together. But you know, I haven't finished that miniature house kit, but I've had such fun with that. And when you make those little miniature houses, it's like I said, all things are possible. And that is so much fun to me. And I think I'm going to do what Polly said and start making them from scratch. Don't buy a ready-made kit. But, okay, so this is coming in from the side. That's why it's going at the angle it's going. All right. Now, it doesn't lay perfectly flat, but it lays pretty darn good because of the way we cut it. But it doesn't have to lay flat because we're going to be doing folding and creasing. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So, let's first... Now, we've got this coming from the right edge. Now we're going to have the sand come up. And don't worry about getting everything to match right now because these next two pieces are probably not going to be sewn together yet because I want it to be able to be very flowing. You know, it's not going to be a rectangular quilt. Let me get these fabrics out of the way. What I need now are my sand fabrics, and I'm going to have 3 of them. The reason I'm using 3 of them is the sand, what I've got here is I've got the darkest, the medium, and the lightest. So the darkest is down near the water because when sand gets wet, it gets darker. All right, so here, these are going to kind of, I can't even really sew them together yet because the water is going to be folded and laid on top. And in fact, one thing I'm going to do is this edge of the water is going to, before I sew it down, it's going to have cheesecloth on the edge of it. So it looks like, and in fact the cheesecloth will extend over onto the sand like this. Okay, and then I've got laces that I'm going to use. So here is, and I think I'm going to need to sew 2 of these together to get it wide enough. So let me do a little, I don't know where I got these. I think someone had them on a table and said, anyone need these? And I grabbed them. So they had cut them and then didn't need them. Okay, I'm going to stitch these together. So I'm cutting this fabric out at unusual shapes and sizes. Then I'm going to take and put fusible interfacing on the back to give it a little bit more stability. Okay, I hate to have that seam right there, but it was the best of the fabric. I'll make sure when I fold it that you don't notice the seam, you know. So, alright, so this is going to kind of come across. So you're going to think, what is she doing? Because it looks really odd right now. But just trust me. It's, you know, we're going to make it work. And we're going to crunch and bunch. And I think I'm going to need some more dark going up here. So let me sew this one on next. All right, here we go. All right, so the sand is going to be bunched up. The water is going to be bunched up. Okay. Oh, you know what? I don't know. It could be. I would have to look that up. That's a really good question, Mary. That's a really good question. Okay. So now, what I'm going to do here next is take the lighter color sand and I'm going to put it let me see. I'm going to put it across here. I'm going to have to do this in a couple different pieces, I do believe. So now I've never done one of these, but I love jumping in and figuring it out. So that's what we're doing right now. Whoops. So this goes back to here. All right. All right. Okay, now, here's this one. Then we put a little bit of starch. And, you know, you're going to have, this is all going to be folded and manipulated, but it will make a difference having the different shades. If you look at the example picture I gave you, you can really see that. All right, this one's going to go up the side here. So let me cut this. Now this is going to create some waste. So just understand, yep, that's what it takes to make art. But luckily these are not expensive fabrics. And they're pretty easily found. If you don't get in a shop, look on Etsy. Just type in landscape fabrics and see what pops up. All right. So what this is going to do, now this is what we know is going to go here. This is going to come up this way. Okay. So what I'm going to do first, it's going to come up two different ways. First, I'm going to take and definitely do a nice curve, and you just put right sides up to one on top of the other and cut them. And then, because you cut it that way, this can go for a different project. Okay. Because you put them this way. There. Okay. Are you kind of following what I'm doing, I'm hoping? So, and this, you know, I won't know until I do all the folding and manipulating. The sand will be all sewn together, But since I've decided that I want to make this fabric kind of have a not be sewn down. It'll just be loosely applicated back just a little. So it definitely shows a little like shadow line. Alright, so this goes here. Now what I'm going to do here is okay. So take these out. Alright, so this goes here. Alright. And then the last beach, let me move this fabric out of the way. I'm not going to sew these together while we're here. We're running low on time. I always think, what am I going to have to talk about? And then I always run over. Okay, so this is going to be the lightest color of the sand. All right. And okay, and then tear it up this way. All right, here we go. Whoops, be good. This one, let me do a quick iron because I want to show you some fun fabric I found looking through my stash of commercial prints, cartoon prints, all that stuff. Okay, so this is going to go on here and come down here. And now I'm going to once more come in with a nice wavy line. Okay, here we go. Alright, so get out these little underneath pieces. Then this will go right here. And I will end up cutting a piece that will go along down near the bottom. So this is going to be like this, and this will be here, and this will be here, and across the bottom. And I'll use some of this extra I love ripping fabric. It just feels good. Alright, then this will be put here, and it'll be another curved line that I will cut. Let's see. Now, I make these curved lines so that it's adding that little extra texture, because that's going to be important when it comes time to, we'll have done the scrunching there. Alright, so now I roughly have a rectangle, and it's going to end up probably about like this, like 18 inches by maybe 13 inches. That's all the bigger it's going to be. But you have to start big like this. And then all of the sand will be sewn together. And I will sew part of this beach edge. I will trim it up, and then start scrunching. So I want to start with some good outside edges. But don't let that hang you up. Because you can always trim it up again later. But once I sew all these sand pieces together, I'll put fusible interfacing on the back of this and fusible interfacing on this, because this will be one piece here. So now, I'll do that for next week. Before I do anything with the edges right here, I will put my lace all around. I'll put lace and cheesecloth and stuff like that around the edge of here, so it's already in place. Well, look what I found. I found some of these. Let me bring you down now for this, since you've seen kind of what shape I'm doing. I found some turtle fabrics. Oop, here they are. And I thought these would be great for some of the little minion turtles, you know, the little ones that are coming out. Because what this is going to be the baby turtles have left their nest. They've hatched out of their eggs in their nest. And then they're going to be working their way towards the sea. And then I think some of the ones that are up real close are going to be these guys, which are just so pretty. And what I'll do is make sure that I cut out some of the scrap batting. And then when I cut this out, I will leave 1/4 of an inch all the way around and tuck it under, and it'll have batting, and they'll get sewn on and they'll be puffy. So here is my turtle fabric right there. Then I found some shell fabric. Then I found some crab fabric. I would probably, yeah, either one of these. I think some of these at the edge of the water would be really cute. And, oh, I found a seagull, but there's no place to put a seagull in this one, so it'll have to wait for another project, because this is a close-up view. But there's some more starfish here, and I just added this, you know, in case I wanted to use some of these starfishes. But now that I'm really thinking, oh, I don't need all these cute seagulls. But now that I'm really thinking about, here's a starfish, and it's already got adhesive on the back. So that will be, oh, look at that, that's really cool there. But I don't put these on until I've done the folding. And then this, something like this, use a little part of this, I doubt it, but maybe a little patch of grass, because this is really a close-up. So pretty much it's just this, plus I have plenty of little shells. I want to put real shells on this, but aren't these the cutest? And then this cute little starfish, and I think it would be a lot of fun to have starfish made from Devon button structure. Alrighty, guys. Oops, I can put this. I get confused sometimes and think, oh, I've got to turn the camera around to say hello. But no, I don't. So, oops, I see my cursor. Yay. So once I adjusted the batteries, the cursor did so much better. So, whoops, let me turn this. All right, I think we've about done it. I want to work on this week. I'm so excited to start this. It's going to be so neat. Now, what I will do is in the inspiration piece, you see where they've crunched it and they stitched it down. What I'm going to probably do first is use my glue, just use little dots to tack it in place. Then I can always come back and stitch it. I think it would be too frustrating to try to hold it in place and stitch it without it moving. But then we'll start the embellishing. So hopefully next week I'll show you, I'll have the folding, some of it done and some of it to show you how I'm doing it. And then we'll start the embellishing with the turtles and the shells and the embroidery floss and the French knots and all of that. So that should be a lot of fun. And this is something just crazy and off the wall, and I think we're going to love it. And you know what would be really good? Is to find a stick that looks like driftwood and hang it from that. Wouldn't that be cool? So, we're being creative. I love landscapes. I love art quilts. They're just a lot of fun. Hopefully I'll have some progress made on my daughter's wedding quilt. And I will have this ready to show you what's the next step. Because you're not going to You'll be a little surprised at the outcome of this. But I'm enjoying all of this. Thank you for spending this time with me. As tired as I was when I got up this morning, I just love visiting with you. I love finding little nuggets of treasure to share with you. And tell you what, right now, I think it's very important that we hang in there together, because there are a lot of changes being made, and it's scary. But together we can enjoy ourselves, have fun, and get through this together. So next week, I should have some good things. I've got to get out and plant my flowers and my vegetables, but I should have some good things to share with you. So that's it for me today. And thank you again. Have a great week and do something special just for you. I will definitely. Take care, my ladies. Y'all are the best. Bye-bye, everyone. Y'all are the best.